What's good, YouTube? And welcome to the house. Maybe it's that crush card that's running around, or maybe it's the fact that this ban list wasn't as impactful or as fun as a lot of people were hoping for it to be. There were only 20 some odd changes versus the massive list we've gotten previously, and with Master Rule 5 on the horizon right here, people are really looking at this like, this was it? This is what we got? I personally, it's about what I expected from the list. There's a couple of surprises and wrenches in the schemes, but let's go ahead and get into the market. It's past time for Banlist talking to see the outfall. Some of the Sky Striker stuff is going up, and they're probably the biggest winners from the ban list. We see that the Prismatic Rose is towards 225 solidly now, with only a couple copies there versus the market price of 205. This has been a little bit on the up and up as people were playing Strikers as a rogue deck. Also, just to note, Widow Anchor, very extremely cheap, but running low on certain quantities right now, so get the copies you want sooner than later using that TCG player link in the description down below, costing you nothing extra and supporting the channel directly for the cards you'd already be buying or scrambling after, or in this case, just taking your time to get to. But the secrets are disappearing, leaving the ultra rares from the Megaton as a budget alternative. I think these will be up in a couple days. And when I look around here, the ultimate rares, they're not jumping too hard, but the quantities are extremely low. I understand the OCG over in Japan land, they like to pay a little bit extra for these ultimate rares. I'm not sure about Kagari anymore, but I do know that Shizuku and Hayate, they go towards 60s. This was going towards 60, but now they have her altar art in the premium gold / collector's rare and other rarities that they have over there, so I don't know if this still holds over in Japan, but I know that they like their ultimate rare Sky Strikers over there, even though they usually don't like the ultimate rare rarity. And then going through the other cards, of course, Rip Engage still. Other cards are slowly going up and out, especially in terms of quantities. So you want to look at this engine maybe and think about how you're going to play even only 21 different prices from Dual Overload. I'm sure the quantities are still there though, unless sellers are suddenly pulling back. Yeah, we still have core TCG with 30 copies at around $3 though, so people are really taking this deck seriously right now. Make your considerations. I personally don't want to play with it or freaking against it, but Widow Anchor at 2 and 3 Kagari, that's pretty tasty for the deck. Other decks from the past that were completely dominant, Zoodiacs, there are some changes here, and their Trident is kind of chilling versus its earlier hype in the season, though. Barrage did get hit, so that's a giant. I think that's actually worse for them. Trading to Barrage for a Trident, I think that's kind of worse for Zoo, but the big winner is Chalkanine, which I've been telling you guys to get ever since it was $3, and here we see it towards 8, and the Ultimate Rare Whiptail finally breaking away from that $20 to $21 price point, and is towards 26 from this hype. It's fallen back down to earth towards 12 to 13 so many times. Maybe this will keep it up towards 15. The rest of the engine is still looking very affordable, very cheap. So if you're thinking about having this around, I don't necessarily say sooner than later with this. We'll have to see how it plays out under the Master Rule, but we know that Zoo does improve under the Master Rule. I think this could be a bit of a contender as an engine, but boy, does Barrage hurt. Pot of Avarice. So many people in the last stream were asking, do you think this is better? Again, now there's 3, that ups the consistency. I think that makes it not necessarily better, but you'll see it more. The problem with Avarice in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! Is yes, that 2 cards can do so much when you're not interrupted. You want all your cards to be able to do something at all times. Even in a stun deck, you're looking at playing a monster and setting all your back row, and you're probably not getting turn 1 in a stun deck, 5 monsters to the graveyard. In a combo deck, yes, you can refresh your extra deck, and 2 cards can get you there somewhat easily, but then if there's a hand trap, boy, I wish this was a Called by the Grave right now. I wish this was something that could react to that hand trap, or be something that's an extender that gets me further. Pot of Avarice just doesn't do that in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And we're still seeing price inflations for some of the highest rarity versions versus what it was, but they're not like just flying off the shelf like they were when it went from 0 to 1. You still see $70 DR copies, and yes, there's a couple more, but people realistically want to make those sales and are trying, and they're not necessarily getting there right now. The ultimate rare, let's find the cheapest unlimited. This will be a little bit of a journey. We see light play, heavy play, towards 100. So we see the line being held somewhat more revered for ultimate rares, which people really like in Yu-Gi-Oh! And usually does beat DR these days. And we see 125 for first ed. I just wouldn't be paying these, and I don't think we'll see Pot of Avarice come out heavy into the meta. Maybe we'll see a couple tops with it. I don't think it's going to be dominating in any way, shape, or form. Now, what might be really, underneath the water lurking about is the deep sea / mermail archetypes that I think get way better under the new Master Rule. Even with Toad to 1, you're still going to see them make Bahamut and bring out the 1 Toad, which is what a lot of the boards would do anyways, while robbing multiple cards from hands. And Deep Sea Diva now at 3, what a starter card, but it does have the tour guide syndrome of, if this gets stopped, that hurts a lot, but at least in Mermails you can use Megalo and Teus from hand, Teus, however you want to say it, and just throw things out and continue to build your board up. So Deep Sea Diva, it's not really as bad as the tour guide effect used to be back in the day, and even tour guide's better today if we're going to talk Therio, where you can continue with your other 3s, make Dante, and you're not stuck because it's a non-BA name. All points aside, look, this card's freaking good, but it ain't jumping like crazy, except for its top version, which, yeah, that's freaking selling out. That's gone. If you waited, it's already too late for that. You're probably paying a price that's going to be somewhat similar to this, like 70s for a while. I don't think it's going to drop back to 55 for too long. I think this is going to be, at 3, people are going to be chasing those extra copies for a while. Speaking of the Atlanteans, I noticed that Dragoons is still up a little. Remember that this was given out on those charity days, the Astral Pack that it's in, so a lot more flooded onto the market, but we still see a higher price point as people are anticipating this deck to be one of the winners of Master Rule 5. Machine duplication. We saw Spiral Gears Drone actually get unlimited while Master Plan got banned, and people are asking if it's really viable to continue on. I don't think it's the best, but we do see the super rares go up. Rip me hollowing out my troop dupe format with the super rares, but there's 2 versions of them to be looking out for, and then there's plenty of commons around. This has always been like a $3 common, though. There's not a lot of quantities of this card if you're considering spirals that way. And remember, Drones does have 3 effects, not just 1 to stack the deck. Magician's Souls, a lot of people are dumping this right now. I see friends on Facebook doing it. I see other people just trying to get rid of their copies. This will probably be down towards 60 before too long, I think. And Dark Magician players, I know you're probably not rejoicing at that price point, but because of what it once was, it's probably going to try to dig its heels in the sand around 60, but I think it's going to continue to tank from here. People keep undercutting each other, and that's going to continue. Versus its bad pull rates in the US and good ones in the EU, it just doesn't have the same purpose in the metagame as it did, and it just becomes another overexpensive legendary duelist card that will appear in Rogue Tops and maybe even the meta again one day, but for now, it's overvalued by far. Toad went all the way down, panic sold, to $9 to $8 last night, and I was telling my stream, I think you still get it at that price point, and this is one of the ones that have rebounded pretty fast versus its fallout and panic selling. You're still going to make Bahamut and summon this. You're still going to dump this in Necros decks. You still have the niche uses and interactions it was in so many different rogue decks, and you're going to try to recycle that 1 Toad as long as it doesn't get called by DD Crowed, all the other unique stuff. Like, as long as you can continue to make this card, it's going to be a freaking good card. And one of's in the extra deck, yeah, but you're not going to be totally focusing a whole strategy on making multiple Toads these days anymore, I feel like. Like, it's a great card still. It's just not your core strategy. Gizmek Kaku is down to one of its lowest points we've seen it at, with sellers lining up as Master Rule 5 approaches, and you don't have to be in that extra monster zone anymore unless you're link summoning. A lot of strategies still gonna link summon. I wouldn't fully underestimate this, but I told you guys its price was going to go down because of that, not just because it's not gonna become suddenly worthless, but you don't have to occupy that zone, and a lot of decks are gonna dance around that, and people were already learning to play around leaving their best monsters in the extra monster zone, so it didn't get slurped for Chimera Tech, so it didn't get slurped by this guy. Good players are still going to hold that practice. You might win some duels of people, oh no, I left my Apollosa up there. Well, that could have been prevented with better gameplay. So that's why Kaku continues to be not the most impressive card to me, but it's still a really great card. And at $16, I'm starting to eye it a little more. Towards $12, I think you should be a buyer. When we look at Dual Overload, prices are continuing to go down little by little each day. When do you go in? I said a week to a week and a half after its full release. That's when prices settle and even out. We're approaching that time, and then that's when you'll see the first real attempts of buyouts if we go by normal market standards. We are under the crush card. We are not at maximum hype capacity. There's not events to drive competitive play, so everything's kind of chilling out and resting. Everything's just going down a little bit at a time. When will it start to spike? It's when people decide they want to go after cards. And we're seeing that the offseason doesn't equal the stop of buyouts, but on newer releases, I think that money might be more poorly spent, and the big boys might stop going after newer releases. So we might see some of these prices stick for some times, but other cards that were underestimated, they continue to spike on up, and you'll want to keep an eye on those, / maybe get them sooner than later. Will Lib go back down towards $3? I don't think it's likely at this point. I think people caught on. Invocation is going up in value and out of quantities on the market. I think I looked at Robbie's Market Watch earlier in the morning, and there were either 29 or 33 of these, if I'm not mistaken. So while it's not skyrocketing in price, people are investing again. They're getting bold. And just to point out the next no sooner than, it's before the WCQ's original date. I still think that was just to get anything that suddenly popped up that was problematic. Like if an FTK or crazy hand loops popped up, I don't think they were going to slay the meta 2 or 3 weeks out before the WCQ. That would leave a terrible taste in the community's mouth. But it's still pretty crazy to see the ban list pop up as no sooner than June 1st. So when looking at strategies like these and saying, oh, it's for the WCQ now, keep that no sooner than date in mind. But I do think most things are relatively safe. When we look at the left behind piece of Needlefiber support, aka Halifibrax, I think that O-line does end up being one of the better pieces. We saw it spike all the way to $10 last night, but people want to make them sales, and you see damaged ones towards that point or moderately play. You just don't go for that if you're going to be playing in tournaments again one day, right? But it is still towards 10 right now. I know I have a stack of them somewhere in the house. Maybe it's time for me to go ahead and list a couple cards. My mouth's watering a little at $10 per ones of these, and I picked all mine out of bulk. When I look at this though, $10, that is pretty crazy, but this is by far one of the best options you have for Needlefiber. And finally, looking at drones himself, not spiking. See, this is what I'm talking about, a slower market. Used to, even rares like this, because especially being cheaper, would just that'd be gone, good or bad. People are really considering how they spend their money a lot more during this time, and I think this is just, yeah, all the product sheets. By the way, I just want to say, whenever sets go up like this on TCG Player early, that doesn't mean this is going to be the price or the cheapest thing. People freak out every single time I feel like there's an early listing. They're like, John, it's on here, and it's 1 or 2 different people each and every time. It's nothing to jump at. It's nothing to just, oh my gosh, $65. These boxes will be cheaper. They'll be towards 60. You'll have your opportunity if you're going sealed to go cheaper. Of course, during this time, though, support your locals if you can. I know a lot of them are holding their doors open to where you can buy product. Get yourself 2 Lost Art promos while you're buying a Secret Slayers box if you're having them good prices and hookups. That being said, thank you for watching today's Banlist Market Watch. What did everybody think of how the market actually isn't just totally wrecked and blown over, but is somewhat another standard day for information? It's not crazy or out there, and personally, I like this. This is nice. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the content. And again, if you are shopping, use that TCG Player link in the description down below, costing you nothing extra and helping me avoid bad ad rates during this time, because it really does help keep a little bit of coolant. Well, there's more views on YouTube. There's not necessarily more ads on YouTube. Thank you, everybody.